we're going to talk about something I'm experiencing right now with one of my clients. I have a case study of HoneyBook and QuickBooks integration and how that's affecting their business. Hi, I'm Kristy with Kristy Barber Consulting, and I help manufacturing, distribution, and e-commerce companies build out their accounting department. I picked up a new client late last year, going through all of their QuickBooks, getting them prepared for end-of-year taxes, doing a cleanup, as well as helping make sure that all of their general ledger accounts were set up correctly, and if we had the right ones in place to be able to tell the story that this business owner needed to know to help scale and grow her business. One thing I noticed is HoneyBook is what she uses for doing a lot of her invoicing because it is pretty. You can add pictures in there, you can put estimates, scope of works, all of that in there and send it over as a package, and it works really well. However, what we were finding out is when the invoices were created and they were sent over to QuickBooks, they were going into a payments to deposit on the balance sheet. Then anytime a payment was made in HoneyBook to that particular invoice, then it was marked and showing up in her accounts receivable on her balance sheet as a negative number. And while you can look at both of those together and get the delta of it and say, okay, well, I have about $3,000 that are unpaid, it also was double counting her income. So when you looked on the sales side, it was, while the amounts were going on the balance sheet, it was also putting amounts in the sales side. And so it was overstating her income. The only way to work around this after a lot of research and going back and forth with HoneyBook was to manually go through and delete every transaction that HoneyBook had synced over and then bring things over just to the bank account, which is unfortunate in a lot of ways, but we're trying to work through some ways with HoneyBook to see how can we link the data over better. One of the downsides with HoneyBook is they don't truly map to specific general ledger accounts in QuickBooks. And that's what is causing us a problem. We have one bank account and there's 3 types of service offerings she has. So when a payment comes in, I want to be able to say, hey, is it for sale category A, B, or C? This can't do that. So then we had to do a journal entry to be able to move it to where the right sales category is so she could see, hey, I sold so much of this, this, and this. And HoneyBook doesn't allow that to happen. So we're kind of going through this idea of, does it make sense to keep HoneyBook because it does offer a really great customer experience, everything looks pretty, or do we keep and move everything back to QuickBooks and we're sending estimates through there and keeping all the invoices from there? Or third part is, are we finding a separate software that maybe does the estimates and the scope of work and we're using a DocuSign to sign those off on and then creating the invoices in QuickBooks and sending those out to the client. So there's a multitude of different ways that we're still working on that's going to be best for my client. But that was one thing that when you're looking and building your business out, you have to make sure that the data, when it is syncing over, that things aren't coming over in a double format. They're not going to the wrong accounts. And certain software like HoneyBook is today, it's very limited in how it can link the data over and map it. And that's one thing, they're aware of it. And when I talked with their customer services, we're going back and forth and trying to figure out a plan, is it's just not a high enough priority yet where they're wanting to do additional mapping. A lot of it comes down to these integrations and mapping to QuickBooks. And I think HoneyBook is a company that starts out with a lot of creatives and they're maybe smaller in how they're set up. It may be a small business. Maybe they're doing $100,000 a year because they're trying to get it done. And I think HoneyBook works with a lot of businesses that are that small, and therefore having all these additional integrations that I'm used to seeing come over from various softwares just isn't at the top of their list because their majority of their clientele don't need it. That's a problem that we're seeing with my particular client, is HoneyBook just isn't sophisticated enough to meet the needs of how we're now building her business and scaling it and showing more detail on her financial statements. If you're looking to integrate HoneyBook within QuickBooks, just make sure that you have things set up right so you don't run into the same issue potentially that my client did, but also really understanding, hopefully from this video, if it is the right fit for you to even have that third party out there to create your invoices. So thanks so much for listening today. I hope you learned a lot of what to do, what not to do when you're trying to integrate HoneyBook into QuickBooks. Check out the description below for some free resources to help you as you're building out your accounting department. Also, feel free to follow me on my other socials.